There is a lie that keeps so many women stuck in abusive relationships, and it's called the sunken cost fallacy. This comes from a term from 1985 in behavioral economics. And in real life, this shows up like, I've already put in 5 years. I can't just leave now, right? I've got him to get it in so many ways. If I could just teach him the rest. You've invested so much. You've got kids, you've got a marriage, a shared life, shared finances. And there is this really deep fear of it just all being for nothing. So we stay to justify the past pain. You can't give up now. It's such an interesting thing that humans do in psychology, right? When you think that somehow more pain, more suffering is going to justify or fix past suffering. Without knowing the term, years ago, I remember when this showed up for me. I had been in a relationship for 4 years and I was being cheated on so often and I knew it. But every time he had a reason. And I remember I was talking with one of my really good friends and she was like, okay, it's been 4 years. What do you want? Do you want it to be 5, 10? And it honestly took me another year to have it really sink in. But suddenly I went, I can't do this anymore. My name is Lisa Sonni. I'm a certified relationship coach. I specialize in toxic and abusive relationships. I have written 5 books and I speak internationally on the subject of abuse. On my channel, I expose the tactics of abusive men and I talk about why victims stay, what makes it so hard for us, and I help shed light on all of these dynamics so that women can understand better and free themselves. So hit subscribe so you don't miss more videos like this. So the sunken cost fallacy is really how we make future decisions based on past investment. And you can look at this from the perspective of money, right? Gambling is a big one. You've thrown down $300 tonight, but if you just put down 20 more, maybe you could gain it all back. But in this case, in the case of an abusive relationship, it really becomes the time you've invested becomes the reason that you're going to invest more time. And there's a real logic trap here, right? I can't leave because I've put in so much time. But to my friend's point, how much time are you going to put into this? When's the end point? When is enough enough? And with a sunken cost fallacy, it's never enough. The amount of time that you've spent in this relationship is not going to create future safety. The amount of time that you've spent investing into this relationship is time lost investing in yourself. Now, one of the reasons that it works so well in an abusive relationship is intermittent reinforcement. So what this is in every abusive relationship, they have this oscillation of kindness and cruelty. They deliver kindness intermittently. You never know when it's coming. And it actually creates this really addictive-like feeling. Tiny moments of good keep this whole investment fantasy alive. Now, plenty of people that are in an abusive relationship where you see this oscillation of good and bad, he loves me, but he's abusive. You see this kind of pattern. It can create a trauma bond. A trauma bond is an unhealthy attachment that exists in this where you basically feel like if you leave him, you can't breathe. You feel guilty. You may or may not know you need to leave when you're in a trauma bond, but you feel stuck and trapped and obligated. And you probably usually feel like you love the person. There is a sort of end stage of trauma bonding where you may not feel like you love them. You probably even feel like you hate them, but you still feel stuck. But whether you're actually in an active trauma bond or not, you are highly attached and you're highly invested in the outcome of the relationship. And even further, we really talk about how we're invested in the abuser, but actually you're also very much invested in the version of you that has existed in this relationship, the version of you that thought that this could work, the version of you that thought you could change him or get him back to the man that he was in the beginning. And it feeds into some of these tropes, right? About women training their husbands, right? I've put in all this time. I'm not going to have trained him. And then he just goes off and he's nice to the next person. And then she gets to reap the rewards of all my hard work. But men like this don't treat the next woman better. They only treat the next woman better at the beginning, the same way that he treated you nicely in the beginning. But an abusive man is an abusive man. They treat all of the women that they're with badly because they don't like women. Our ego can really get in the way of this in a huge way, both in thinking about the other woman, but even in ourselves. Was I not good enough to change for? Was I not good enough to treat better? And then we feel shame because we've stayed too long. We feel shame because we feel stuck. No matter what, we don't win. We feel awful leaving these relationships, which only leads us to stay. I speak to women who are just afraid to admit what this actually is. And I get it. Most of us are experiencing cognitive dissonance. That's the name for the mental discomfort that we feel from holding two conflicting beliefs, like he is good and he is bad. He loves me, but he's abusive. He cheats on me, but he respects me. There is such a deep emotional trap for so many women. What if he leaves and he's nice to the next woman? What if I wasted the best years of my life? What about everything that I sacrificed to be in and stay in this relationship? And you're grieving. I mean, my God, people don't talk enough about the absolute grief of leaving an abusive relationship. You're grieving the good version of him. You're grieving the fantasy, the life that you thought you would have. It makes so much sense. The version of you that you thought would never stay with a man like this. But sometimes grief gets mistaken for obligation, and then that gets us to stay. It's so interesting how our pain then becomes justification for staying. Like, I've already stayed this long, right? So why leave now? Also wondering if you can do better, if you'll be alone, wondering if he was right the whole time. We just keep pouring into it. Abusers are really good at making you feel like you're always on the cusp of them changing, right? If you would just do one thing differently, if you would just change, if you would just stop being argumentative, if you would just stop harassing him about going to therapy, everything would be better. And when you feel like you're always one step away from things being great, it makes you want to stay because you're so close. It's like you see the finish line in a race and then you just stop 100 meters before the end. But you're going to spend your entire relationship running on the spot 100 meters before the end. You're working so unbelievably hard and you're getting nowhere. And what you're not realizing, it's because he's holding you in that spot, because that spot benefits him. There is no moving forward. But if he can keep you feeling like you're just so close, then you're always going to keep trying. And the sunken cost fallacy is always going to take over. And listen, the more you've lost, the more you want to stay, the more it costs you to leave. And truthfully, this is exactly why this fallacy is so dangerous, because it tricks women into just giving more time to a dead reality. Go back to what I said about gambling. At some point, you've spent everything, right? So now what? You're going to go into debt? You're going to keep throwing down 20s on the table until what? You're dragged kicking and screaming out of the casino? Wake up. You've asked him to change. He's not changing. You're always so close, but you can never get there. You've been defeated, but none of this means that he won. Winning something like this, which relationships, abusive relationships, healthy relationships, none of them should be about winning. But you know how to win this game is leaving. Leaving isn't easy. I teach women how to leave. I know that you want to make the pain that he's already put you through worth something, right? Because if things can get better than what you've been through, at least it had a good ending. To walk away and you've just been abused and then you end it and that's it. You walk away and you have nothing to show for it. I know what that feels like. But what you're trying to do here is force meaning from betrayal. You stay because if you leave, that's when the loss starts to actually feel real. We can sort of live in this land of, but things can be better, right? This land of hope, but it's false hope. Hope is not helpful to anyone in an abusive relationship. But I'll tell you what, staying only increases the loss. Ask yourself something really smart here, okay? Ask yourself, if this actually started today, would you choose this? If he was like this on the first date, would you choose this? If nothing changed, would I want this in a year? Would I be able to handle this exact relationship in 5 years? And then maybe a really painful question. If my daughter described this happening in her relationship, would I tell her to stay? You know that really cliche therapist advice of talk to yourself like you would a friend? If your best friend said this to you, if your sister said it to you, if your daughter said this to you, would you stay? Would you tell her to keep trying? Would you say, well, it's been 10 years, keep going? Of course not. We have to make decisions about what's happening right now and how to move forward, not because we've invested 5, 10, 20 years. You know, I'll never forget a client that I had that worked with me when she was 84 years old. And she honestly said, I can't spend another day on this earth with this man. All of her friends, her family, everyone said, you're crazy to leave him. You're 84 years old. Why upset the apple cart at this point? And she said she could not stand it another second. They had been married for 51 years. Don't spend another second of your day, of your time, of your life, of your energy pouring into a lost investment. This is the work, right? Separating history from the future. Don't build your life around something that's already hurt you. This is the work that women are doing with me in my one-on-one programs and inside the Trauma Bond Recovery Group Coaching Program. You can get in touch with me at lisasonni.com. Thank you so much for watching. Hit subscribe so you don't miss more videos like this, and I'll catch you in the next one.